At 4:17 hours, the Pacific Ocean was still. No wind, no traffic, no trace of motion except a thin heat signature sliding across the horizon. The sky was moonless. The sea, black glass. Somewhere beneath that silence, data was already moving. An invisible pulse hopping between satellites, trawlers, and coastal antennas. What it carried was simple: coordinates, speed, bearing. But for analysts back in Virginia, that pulse meant something much larger. For months, they had watched fragments of information, broken radio bursts, banking transfers, ghost ships that vanished between radar sweeps. All pointed to a single truth. Someone had rebuilt the old smuggling routes and fused them with military-grade logistics. They called it the Black Current, a hidden artery that moved drugs, weapons, and cash between South America and the western coast of the United States. Its estimated worth, $14 billion a year. Inside the operations center, the number hung like a warning. 14 billion wasn't just profit, it was influence, a currency strong enough to buy loyalty, to shape governments, to erode borders. If left unchecked, it would change not just economies, but allegiances. Far to the south, 3 cargo vessels ran without lights, slipping through international waters as if swallowed by the night. Each one carried sealed polymer containers packed with synthetic narcotics and precursors. Each captain was ex-military, trained in radar evasion, guided by encrypted satellite uplinks. They believed the sea was theirs. Above them, at 36,000 feet, a P-8 Poseidon aircraft traced endless loops through thin clouds, its sensors painting the ocean with invisible light. The data streamed north to a single destroyer, the USS Porter. On its deck, SEAL teams waited in silence, gear checked, weapons locked, eyes fixed on nothing. They'd been briefed for weeks, rehearsed in simulation, yet nothing truly mirrored the uncertainty of open water. When the order finally came, it was almost whispered through the comms. Track, intercept, disable, capture. The ocean had no idea it was about to become the stage for the largest counter-narcotics strike in modern history. The plan that led them there had begun half a year earlier. Intercepted cartel communications had hinted at something vast, codenamed La Travesía, the crossing. It wasn't a single shipment, but an entire migration of product, manpower, and wealth designed to saturate the U.S. market for months. To stop it, agencies that rarely shared a room were forced to merge. Cyber units at Quantico traced cryptocurrency transactions through shell corporations in Hong Kong. Coast Guard cutters in Panama mapped rendezvous zones used by front companies. Intelligence from Colombian and Panamanian partners filled in the gaps that satellites couldn't see. At the heart of this network stood Task Force Sentinel, an experiment in integration. Military precision paired with legal oversight. Its insignia, a trident crossed with an eagle's wing, represented that union. Every member carried 2 badges, one for defense, one for justice. Analysts lived inside that data for months. They learned the language of smugglers, the rhythm of encrypted chatter. They worked through nights of static and caffeine, translating fragments of voice into patterns of probability. The youngest among them had never seen the sea they were trying to protect. To them, it existed only as pixels and numbers. But when the pattern finally crystallized, 3 vessels leaving Ecuador within minutes of one another, every monitor in the room glowed the same red. Sentinel had its proof. Orders traveled faster than the tide. The Porter turned southwest, flanked by 2 smaller escorts, their lights blacked out, their radar silent. To the casual observer, the sea was empty. To those inside the chain of command, it was a chessboard in motion. On board, the SEALs prepared like surgeons. They rehearsed deck diagrams, hand signals, containment procedures. Every action had to meet the strictest chain of custody, so the arrest would stand in federal court. It wasn't enough to win a battle. They had to win the paperwork too. By midnight, the trap was set. 3 faint signatures crept across the grid, almost invisible except to the algorithms designed to find them. They moved in formation, confident, unhurried. Then, without warning, the signals blinked out. Radio silence, no GPS, nothing. Somewhere, someone realized they were being hunted, but by then, it was too late. Dawn arrived as a bruise of copper light over indigo water. Combat swimmers launched first, sliding soundlessly from the rear hatch of a submerged transport. Their propulsion boards left no wake. They advanced beneath the surface, guided by infrared beacons projected from drones miles above. Each heartbeat they counted was matched by a heartbeat on the destroyer's monitors. In the Porter's Combat Information Center, the air glowed red. Operators watched streams of telemetry, sonar arcs, and encrypted chat bursts between agencies. The sea looked quiet, but the screens told another story. 3 vessels, 3 missions, 1 chance. At 5:41, the command echoed through every headset. Execute Viper. Engines roared to life. 2 MH-60R Seahawks lifted off the deck, rotor wash whipping through mist. From their bellies descended ropes and shadows, men dropping fast toward the first cargo ship. Within seconds, concussion grenades shattered the dawn, stunning the crew before they could react. Below deck, detectors screamed. Rows of polymer drums filled a compartment larger than a gymnasium. Each barrel carried a serpent insignia, the cartel's symbol of power. The final tally would equal 200 million lethal doses, enough to wipe out entire cities. The second vessel tried to run. It poured black smoke from its funnels, engines thrashing against the waves. But the destroyer was faster. A warning round exploded near its bow, a plume of spray rising like a signal flare. When the echo faded, the smuggler slowed, engines coughing into surrender. The third ship was different. It transmitted a distress call in broken English, pretending to be a fishing boat in trouble, but its coordinates didn't match any registry. Drones intercepted the signal, triangulated the source, and revealed a floating fortress disguised as a freighter. Hidden bulkheads, armored compartments, reinforced hatches, evidence of engineering far beyond normal smuggling. Seals boarded under punishing sea spray. Waves hammered the hull as they cut through steel plating, uncovering compartments filled with weapons, cash, and hard drives, encrypted with foreign software. Every byte would later become evidence of a multinational network. By 7:45, the battle was over. 32 suspects detained, 3 ships under control, all captured live on body cam and drone footage. From above, the scene looked almost unreal. Gray destroyers encircling dark hulks, helicopters orbiting overhead, sunlight flickering across a sea turned into a courtroom. News of the seizure spread like wildfire. $14 billion in product and assets gone overnight. Economists compared the loss to the annual revenue of small nations. Journalists called it the day the ocean fought back. In Washington, leaders spoke carefully. The operation wasn't about spectacle, they said, but deterrence. For decades, U.S. strategy against cartels had been reactive, chasing shipments, intercepting couriers, dismantling cells. Now it was shifting toward dominance of domain, sea control, air surveillance, precision law enforcement with military backing. The deployment of a guided missile destroyer for counter-narcotics was unprecedented. To allies, it signaled commitment. To cartels, it signaled escalation. For the first time, transnational crime was being treated as a strategic threat, not just a criminal enterprise. There were critics, of course. Policy analysts warned that militarizing drug enforcement could trigger new arms races among traffickers, but others pointed to hard data. Within 30 days of Operation Viper, satellite analytics showed a 40% drop in cartel vessel activity across major corridors. Fear, once again, proved a faster weapon than diplomacy. For the sailors and agents who had lived it, the victory was tangible but heavy. They knew that success on paper rarely meant peace in practice. Every empire that collapses leaves fragments, and fragments evolve. Someone, somewhere, would be learning from this defeat. The question was when they would resurface, and how. Back at base, maintenance crews cleaned salt from the Porter's decks. To the untrained eye, it looked like any warship after a mission, but those who'd been there could still feel the tension in the metal, the hum of power unleashed and restrained. They had turned information into action, theory into law, and law into a message. Weeks later, the captured ships lay moored inside secure harbors under federal custody. Each container was cataloged, each item sealed and logged, each byte of data mirrored onto evidence servers. Prosecutors and agents worked around the clock, turning chaos into a case file that would stretch across continents. The operation became study material. In training halls, instructors paused videos mid-frame to dissect every movement, the synchronized breaching, the line of communication, the restraint under fire. New recruits watched not for adrenaline, but for discipline. Precision was the new heroism. Across Latin America, ripple effects spread. Cartel factions argued over who had leaked their routes. Some blamed rival families, others suspected infiltration by foreign intelligence. Rumors alone disrupted shipments worth hundreds of millions. Meanwhile, civilian shipping companies quietly adjusted their paths, unwilling to risk resemblance to the seized vessels. Insurance premiums shifted overnight. In ways unseen, the economy itself began to acknowledge the operation's shadow. For the families of those who had served aboard the Porter, the news carried a quieter resonance. Many remembered the ship's long history, its deployments, its near losses, its resilience. To them, Operation Viper wasn't just a mission, it was redemption. The destroyer that once guarded coasts had become a symbol of national endurance. In congressional hearings, officers testified not with slogans but with numbers. They explained how layered radar networks shortened pursuit times by half, how integrated command removed bureaucratic lag, how collaboration replaced competition between agencies. For perhaps the first time, policy sounded less like politics and more like engineering. Yet even as applause filled committee rooms, planners knew the sea never stays quiet for long. Cartels adapt. They always have. They would study these tactics, design new routes, build smaller, faster vessels, use drones or semi-submersibles that barely break the surface. The cycle never ends. It only shifts shape. That truth haunted even the victors. Because for every seized shipment, there were others still moving, invisible, relentless. And for every empire destroyed, another waited in blueprint. As hurricane season swept across the Caribbean, the waters eventually calmed. The headlines faded, replaced by newer crises. But in command centers, the footage from Operation Viper still played on silent screens, a reminder of what coordination and resolve could achieve. Out at sea, satellites watched the same coordinates night after night. The ocean looked empty again. But under that stillness pulsed the hum of drones, patrols, and sensors, a network invisible, but awake. Beyond the technology and the politics, what endured was a quieter idea. That vigilance itself is a form of peacekeeping. That power, when paired with purpose, becomes protection. And somewhere beyond that horizon, others plotting the next shipment remembered the night the sea turned against them. Because in that moment, when a $14 billion empire met the full precision of American naval power, the ocean itself became a line that could not be crossed.